Hello, welcome to another episode of the G.I. Joe New News Review. I am David Allen, or if you like, Super Dave. We have a special guest today. We're talking all about Super-7, and that is with Brian Flynn. Yay, Brian.
Yay, Brian. Yay, David.
Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I like to catch up with you. Catch up a couple times, 2 or 3 times a year, uh, with all the cool product and updates. And there's a lot of stuff going on with Super 7 and GI Joe at the moment. A lot of stuff in general with Super 7 going on, but we're going to try to keep it to the GI Joe realm, and so on and so forth. Um, so how are you doing?
Doing good. Winter has sort of shown up, so now it's a little cold and wet. So middle of November, like it's not sunny anymore. So I got to make the transition into not just sweatshirts.
Unfortunately, I don't have that problem because I'm in Florida and it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, but you also have to endure summer in Florida.
Well, that is true. That is true. Thank goodness the man upstairs invented air conditioners.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So let's get into some of these cool things that you've got going on. You have obviously a lot of GI Joe news going on right now. You have the pre-order for the next wave of Reaction Plus, which I pre-ordered on Wednesday. It's already out for delivery. It's already been shipped to me.
The
Like
pre-book. No,
it
yeah,
is.
it's sort of a first to market through us, but yeah, it's going to be everywhere. But yeah, once again, trying to keep things close to the vest and then surprise everybody like, oh, look at all this exciting stuff. I think we kept, I don't know how much you can tell me how many leaks, what did people know ahead of time?
Well, they knew that the name onlys were leaked by Big Bad Toy Store
Oh, okay.
last month, and so it was a little bit of a puzzle as to what those leaks were because I think there was a spelling error on one of them or something, and they were like, "Well, is that an Arctic or is that not an Arctic? What is that?" And but it's a really nice wave so far. All these waves have been very well balanced, very well, you know character you have to have in the wave, deep cut, cool thing like red glow snake eye. It's a very well balanced wave, and every wave going back. I don't know, a year. This has only been a year, and that's what I want to touch on. Reaction Plus has only been 1 year, and there's already 32 figures since October of last year when the first wave was put up for pre order,
It
and the
was in
Big Bad Toy
October.
Store Crimson Twins.
God, it feels like it was a little bit longer than that. Maybe.
Well, you did the preview at Joe Fest of the first
Yeah.
wave with the
Yeah.
Crimson
Yeah.
Twins.
And that would have been in July.
That would have been, yeah,
Well,
July
June
of 2024 or
2024.
June of
That's when we showed the blue
2024.
ones.
Right.
That's
And
right.
then it went up for pre order in October, I believe, that year. And now it's been a year.
Yeah.
32 figures so far
Yes.
in.
This wave is technically a little bit early, but so yeah, yeah. It's cool. I mean, it's a lot of well, it doesn't feel like a lot, but and when you put it that way, it is a lot, I guess. It's really just trying to have a regular cadence of Joe product coming out that seems to be manageable and for people to collect. Um, that almost makes it sound a little more unmanageable than it should be.
Well,
Uh,
there's a lot more in that 32 figures for 1 year than it sounds. Like you said, it sounds a little too more manageable, but there was Big Bad's Toy Store exclusives, there's Walmart's exclusives, there was San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, there's the sneak peek leaks of figures like Python Serpentor, Tiger Force Duke, Python Bats, and Python Cobra Command. So there's a lot of other things going on. You're not just doing normal four-figure waves every 3 months. It seems like there's been one every quarter for the last year, a
it
four-figure wave.
yeah, it should basically be four figures each quarter. So each wave. Then there's generally one retailer exclusive that's attached to that. That's usually at Target. That would be your Python Patrols and everything, or Tiger Forces. Um, and then there's been a few one-offy kind of things like that. That should be the general. That's the general outline of how the year works. So every quarter you're going to drop five, right? And then we'll sprinkle a few along the way in here for key moments or events or anything else like that.
And then we also have Micronauts kind of peppered in from time to time, which I kind of consider it because it is the Hasbro universe in the grand sense of the Hasbro connected universe. Micronauts is technically in there, so I
Yep.
kind of include Micronauts. That's why my Baron Karza is over there in my display.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Micronauts are basically part of the Transformers universe, and Transformers universe is mixing up with GI Joe. I mean, there's nobody that isn't watching this that knows the whole lineage of why Transformers is actually derivative of GI Joe. So I'm not going to go down that route,
Yeah,
but you know, you know, and Micronauts is just a before you get to Transformers, you get to Micronauts.
right. And when you look at all these properties, Micronauts, well, technically GI Joe is first, and then Micronauts, then Transformers, and then
Yep.
like no, actually then ROM, and then Micronauts, then Transformers, then Mask and Cops and Inhumanoids, and it just keeps on going. It's
Yeah.
uh, but I've been getting all the Micronauts, and again, those are on. They ship those the next two figures of those, so I'll be putting them over here in my mixed universe area here, my Hasbro mixed universe. But you kind of gave me a hint, and you actually mentioned it at the panel at Joe Fest this past year that we were going to get another drop. It was a little earlier than you said because it was in October instead of December, which I was
Yeah.
happy.
I, I I think because, and I don't shoot the messenger on this one, but I think what's going on is because it's selling it out faster than expected at retail, is that they want to replenish the shelves. We've got these figures coming, and we want to make sure they're here early and on time and everything. So I think everything's here a little earlier. So I think they actually accelerated the launch of this next wave because there was place for it on shelf.
And it was a really cool wave, and I'm hoping that we get some of the more deeper cuts down the road. This is obviously a GI Joe podcast, but I do cover the family, the Hasbro family, from time to time. So
Yeah, I mean, I think in this wave, obviously the last wave was very movie centric, so that made it a lot easier for people to kind of grasp the whole concept. Um, I think where we were at with the movie then is like there's a lot of cool stuff to do in the movie, but you've got some of it already. Do you need it again? Do you not need it again? Like Nemesis Enforcer. Like you have a Nemesis Enforcer. Do you need my Nemesis Enforcer? Is it going to be different enough or not? That's a very sort of six of one, half dozen of the other question. So that's one thing. I saw some comments like, "Where's Nemesis Enforcer?" I'm like, "Well, you kind of already have one, but you don't have Mara." Now I realize Mara's not from the movie and whatever, but it's still like, how do we get in? My directive, at least mentally, has been, what do you not have at all?
well, and that's the tricky thing that I've noticed with Super 7, not only with Reaction, but a Reaction Plus and Ultimates, and things you've done with other lines too. You've always said that you want to get things that haven't been done before, but you're a collector as well. What would you want? And so that line is a tricky line. You're kind of, that line is moving a little bit as you go.
Yeah, and there's probably somebody that's saying, well, then why are you making so many Cobra Commanders or Snake Eyes? And that's just the reality of selling toys, which is anybody that's willing to listen to me and you talk about this is deep in the weeds, right? They are into GI Joe, and so they want the cornucopia, they want the variety. But the reality is, when I put it on peg, that Cobra Commander, it doesn't matter if it's why you always see a Darth Vader on peg.
Yep.
is that Cobra Commander and that Snake Eyes are going to outsell everything else. It could be the 35th version of Cobra Commander, and you're like, I hate this. And it's like, yes, but it will still outsell all the other figures. And so it's always trying to balance that you need to have something like that in the line, not in every wave, but you need something like that here and there peppered throughout everything. And how do I give you a version of that that you don't have? That's not to say that you're going to get it every single wave, because somebody's going to be like, oh, all I get is that. But you've always got to find a difference and try to find a way. And that's why in this wave, you've got Cobra Commander with the cape,
And the scepter.
and the scepter. But then with Snake Eyes, we've done that glow in reaction way back when on the blind woodsman 2-pack with the radiation poisoning.
That was
And
blue, wasn't it?
it was more blue on that one, and then we were just like, and making it glow red, and we are just like, that was really cool thing. And I think that was really early in the reaction. I didn't know how many people missed it, so we kind of gave that a shot again to see how people would react to it.
But that particular iteration of Snake Eyes in O-ring, for better, no better term than just O-ring as a generic term,
Yeah,
was never done. There's a
yeah,
lot of O-ring style figures, iterations of characters, like the Wild Bill, for example.
yeah,
The animated Wild Bill, that was the animated Wild Bill. The
yeah,
figure was a completely different thing. So that made sense. So
yeah,
a glow Snake Eyes makes sense to me.
yeah, yeah. That's the hope. The hope is it makes sense.
And so that Cobra Command, there are some differences with his deco. I think the cape. Now, is the cape a cloth goods cape
Yeah,
with
soft goods.
the metal in it that you can pose, or is just cloth by itself? Because the Serpentors have all just been cloth.
I think it's just cloth. I think at that price point, getting a wire in it is a little too expensive.
Okay, I'm just curious. Um, so and the scepter and stuff like that. So it is a different version in that that style of O-ring format that was never released as a vintage character. Yes, Reaction did it, but vintage, no. Same with Snake Eyes, no.
Yeah.
The Scarlet is a completely new sculpt for a female Arctic type character, and I'm gonna go out on a limb that we're probably gonna get several other female versions of characters in Arctic gear, so that mold could be reused.
Not necessarily. That Arctic look, Scarlet plays a little more of a role in it, and obviously she's a great main character. I think in general with the Arctic looks, like the problem is most of the Arctic looks are just guys in coats. So it's like, is that cool and exciting or not?
Well,
Not as much. So we actually don't have a lot more of the Arctic outfits planned at this
you
point.
don't. Wow.
No.
Because you got
Um,
what? You did Destro, you did Scarlet, you did Snake Eyes, Cobra Commander.
yeah, there's one other that's planned for, uh, where they have a little bit more custom uniforms. But like, do you really need Quick Kick in the Arctic coat?
Wow, he was in the Arctic without anything,
Well,
selling his
there's also
punching
he's
cards.
wearing a coat in part of it.
Oh, it is okay.
Yeah, yeah, and but it's sort of like, if it's just guys in coats, like I don't know how many,
Well,
like one or
but
two is fine. I don't know. I need everybody.
but you did the bazooka in Reaction, so
Yeah,
that's a character that was never done in that iteration. Just like with this wave, you're doing a couple of characters that were never done in those iterations.
yeah. I think that's been an interesting thing if we really project down the line a bit. Not in the next 12, 18, 24 months, but really down the line, um, is we made so many iteratives of characters in the reaction line. Do people want to see those revisited in Reaction Plus or not, and
I
which
think so.
ones? And it gets to be sort of like I I understand for that purist guy, he's gonna be like, yes, I
Well,
don't want it in 5 POA, I want it in O-ring.
yeah.
But is that cool or drool? I don't know.
No, I think it's definitely cool because you touched on some very good characters in reaction that I know 100%. And you always call me on this whenever I say this 100%. Yeah, but is that 100% this percent or that percent? And I'm like, I think people want it, and that is the Quinn, obviously O-ring. We want a Quinn in O-ring. We did
Yeah,
kind of get him in the two packs, the comic two packs. We got the regular Quinn. We didn't get the Arctic Quinn, and you did Raven in reaction, and I know for a fact people want that as an O-ring
yeah.
reaction plus character. And now that you're doing Mara, you're touching on these female characters, and that's a whole nother thing I'm going to get into with Mara in a minute. But yes, I know people that want that as an O-ring type figure.
And I can say, you specifically brought up Quinn and Raven, and those are two that we've already kind of really been talking a lot about, because those are more overt, of like, okay, there's still a big opportunity, I think, there. I think they cross over. The question I have is just more on some of the other stuff that,
Oh yeah.
you know, that we've made is, are people really looking for a City of the Dead in O-ring? I don't know. Are they looking for, Cobra Snake Troopers?
Maybe some of
And
that's what I was going to say. Some of those troopers, maybe like one, not nine.
yeah.
One.
Well, it depends on if you're an army builder or not,
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff that gets into, like, I'm trying to make sure that the waves going forward are not the characters we've made in reaction. But if there are some of those obvious ones that we made where people are like, yo, you really need to go back. I don't have a good sense, at least, and maybe Dave, you could throw a poll, but I don't get a good sense of exactly of all, because we made like 70 something reaction figures of
Oh, you
those,
made
like,
like 150.
we made 3,000.
No,
Is
there was a
which
lot
ones of
because
those are the ones where people are like, no, 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 that one I really need again? And I think that's a tricky line that I can't, when talking to fans, it's always so personal about the characters they love
yes.
that it's hard to get a consensus on which figures sort of rise above the wave, if you will.
Well, yes, and the good thing about what you're doing is you are touching on not only vintage character all variations. You're touching on comics and you're touching on Sunbow. So you're really covering a lot of the gambit with Reaction Plus, and you're not stuck in one thing. So you have a your cornucopia is much more overflowing with options, and
Yeah.
so that hopefully means that this line has a lot of legs to it.
Oh
As
yeah,
long as
yeah.
the
I think
spells
that
are going good.
there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been done. There's a lot of stuff that's been touched on, sort of, or maybe not the way we might have thought we would have liked it. So I think that there's a lot of options still to be done. Um, I got I we have a really interesting thing for, I think it comes out in fall of next year, maybe a little sooner. I'm not sure, but I think it's gonna be a radical left turn for a lot of people. That I think they're gonna be really excited, but I think it's gonna catch people like really off guard.
Well, I can
Like,
only imagine what you guys are going to do because you 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 chose the exact word left field. You throw some things that are like holy smokes, like the Pyramid of Darkness, Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness set on the train. That was way out of left field. The pork
yeah.
chop sandwiches, like April Fools.
I still can't believe they let us make the Fensler PSA stuff. I'm so
Yeah,
amped on that. I'm a computer.
right. But
You
that
can't stop all the downloading.
I can't even imagine the fans out there are going to be like, "What the hell?" Because there are some obvious things, like there's some obviously, and I think you already did it kind of with reaction. Is the no, you didn't do it. Satin and her band with Snake Eyes
Yeah.
and Shipwreck and Timber. I don't think you did that. You
No,
did
no, we have talked endlessly about satin and the band is like, I think what really everybody wants is Snake Eyes dressed up like Boy George. I don't know that you really want satin. I don't know that you really want Timber on his back legs with the hat on. I don't know that you really want Shipwreck, playing a saxophone.
I don't
I think you really just want Snake Eyes in a
know.
dress, but it's the same thing. Like, because if you make it properly, now all of a sudden you're talking about satin, Shipwreck, Snake Eyes, and Timber.
Yes, that's
All like,
correct.
okay, it's 3.5 to 4 figures. Now it's a box set that's $7,500. Is that really? Do you really want to pay $100 for that or $75 for that? My answer is probably no.
I
But
don't
if I
know.
made one of the figures and put it in a diorama or something, then maybe you would want that. We've talked about that a bunch and just gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Because if it's satin by herself, I'm not sure that you want satin by herself.
It's I think there is definitely an audience. I do think there's an audience for that, and you guys are in a better position to gauge these things. But I do believe there's an audience for that. Whether how you release it is the tricky part. If you do a Zartan from Cold Slither one off, and then you pepper them one every year or something like that, then eventually you get all four members of Cold Slither. But would that be something people were patient enough to wait on with Satin in her band? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because the reality is it's a ridiculous moment. But if you were to like put that picture of Shipwreck with the saxophone in that disguise, like I'm not sure you're like, that's a cool figure I want to put on my thing versus I like to laugh at it. It's a conversation we have sometimes when you get into the punny stuff. Is like, is that a really funny JPEG or is that $25 funny? And those two things are very different.
It is definitely different. I agree with you on that because it is getting expensive. I did pre-order that wave and it was $100, and then with shipping was 113 and stuff. So I was like, oh, they stepped up their pricing on these a little bit here, which they were 20, 22, 21.99. I think the last batch that was the big order. Maybe I'm mistaken. The Big Lob, the Pythona. Um, the Destro, and who else was in that one? Snake Eyes, Arctic. I think that was still the 21.99, and now this wave is the 24.99.
Yeah, and that is all downstream from all the political complications going on with all of that stuff. It's all sort of like this is the new normal now. Things may change again, and when they change, it shows up, but it's going to take us, months for that to sort of go through the process. So it's probably going to be a little bit volatile for a while, but I can't expect, unless things go crazy, I don't expect it to go higher. But hopefully it can come back down at some point. But that's all based on just what the oversimplification is if it costs 30% more to bring it in, it's going to cost 30% more at the end on the
Well,
outside.
well, I completely understand. I work in the retail industry and the toy retail industry, so I understand all that stuff. It was and so and I won't say I'm well. I gotta see how can word this because I don't want people to throw tomatoes at me. I'm kind of a all-in collector, and I'm a little bit. You have me. You don't need to worry about me. It's the other people that are buying at Target when they see that tag at Target. What the hell is this?
Yeah, it's a really tricky thing because a lot of times what you'll see at Target, sometimes you'll be like, why is that so cheap? And like the whole point of that being cheap is that they're not making money on it. They're saving the space.
Yes.
They're literally like, I'm just going to give them something cheap to hold that space for next year for me. And I'm going to make or even lose money on this, but I don't care because I'm making money someplace else. So it's a really, we don't have a lot of those luxuries. It's pretty straightforward. This is what it's going to cost. This is what it's going to make. And, you know, um, but at the same time, I try to be cognizant, whether people believe it or I don't know if you've heard me talk about this stuff before. It's like
Oh
we
yes.
try to manage like how much am I asking you a year to collect the line? Like, because I'm not the only thing collect.
That's right.
Life is expensive, so how do we make it fun and enjoyable as best we can? And it's just
Is that
tricky because in anything like this, you're in a very thin Bezier curve of like, if demand comes down a little bit, and that means your units come down a little bit, well, then your costs actually come up per unit. Like, and so trying to navigate that equilibrium becomes very, very tricky. And as much as people are like, I see like the same thing, like if you talk about our GI Joe, it's at Target. That's great. It's not at every Target though. You know,
well?
it's only Target has whatever it is 2,400 stores, and their sets are either your 2,400, 1,800, 1,200, 600, or 400, and depending on what you get chosen, people will be like, oh, it's at Target. But if it's just in the 400 store set, it's not a lot of units. Anybody could be like, all right, how many do I see on a peg? All right, what does that mean? All right, okay, if they only bring in three, that's 1,200 units. Well, 1,200 units isn't a lot. So it's managing sort of this collector level curve where it's not, I'm in, the action, even though this does hang an action figure, it's not in that thing where it's like, oh, I have 20 pegs of this thing
Right.
and it's stacked deep and it turns on a weekly basis. This stuff is very much, it drops, people pick it up, and then that's all the people that wanted it.
Yeah.
That's
Well, in Florida, we've gotten a lot better. One of our interviews from a couple years back, I was saying that we didn't get a lot in Florida, and there's 5 targets in my immediate vicinity that I can make the rounds, and we didn't have a lot of reaction. They weren't there, but now Reaction Plus seems to be coming to the stores a lot more than the Reaction did, and they are selling out. You might see one
right.
Arctic Snake Eyes, or you might see one Python Cobra Commander, or 5 or 6 Serpentor, new Serpentors, or this or that. But it's
If
mixed.
you see
Everyone is
this,
different.
like, but that's a perfect example. Like you'll say, hey, you said, oh, I saw 5 or 6 Serpentor, but you're talking about the
Yes,
Python Patrol one.
right.
Python Patrol one has its own peg because it's a Target exclusive, so it's going to be brought in deeper quantity.
Uh,
But then once that's gone, that peg doesn't necessarily get refilled, and then it's gone.
yeah. Um, so the cadence we talked about a little bit earlier. So you've increased. So you're going to be doing every quarter. It used to be like 3 drops a year with a bunch of. Now you're going to do 4 drops a year and
That's the
some
plan.
added specialty things from like San Diego Comic Con, New York Comic Con, hopefully Joe Fest, and
Hopefully, Joe
take that
Fest.
to
Wouldn't that be great?
it would be awesome. We would love that.
Geez, it would be really great that if we had that there this year, wouldn't it?
It'd be phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I'm giddy with anticipation as to what, because I know you wanted something last year, and it came a week late, and
It came a week late. Yeah, I know.
it was the Ultimates Tiger Force Flint and Python Destro, which were great. I love both of those.
No, we've got some Reaction Plus lined up.
Great, man. I wonder what it could be.
Oh, we're not talking about that today. We
And I
don't
know
talk
it's a
about
little.
Fight
I'll
Club.
have to check you in my spring when I do my spring interview. Hopefully, I'll get a little more of information on that then. Um, but so that's what it's going to go. It's going to be a quarterly drop every 3 months.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So then you already have the winter. Actually, this technically would be the winter drop. So you have the spring drop already planned and ready to go.
Oh yeah, well, I mean we're working on 27 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you are
Well, I mean
ahead of
it's
time.
November 20th. There's 6 weeks left of this year. And this stuff takes more than a year to bring to market. So if we're not well into 27, we're behind schedule.
I understand. What was going to say something else, and I can't remember what I was going to say. Maybe it'll come to me in a second. Um, and then we talked about the selection. So you're balancing out all the waves based on a lot of the things we've already discussed: character choice, deep cut, kind of. Uh, Touching on the reaction a little bit here and there, and those deep cuts are the ones that people really are um, chomping at the bit to get. And you really did some excellent deep cuts this year. You got Fatal Fluffies back here. You got Ramar back there. You got Big Lob, Pythona. You got who else is over here? Oh, What's a Man Cobra Commander, and then now Mara and Zartan from Cold Slither. So you've hit some really, really good figures that people really want that never got ever released in a O-ring style figure. Are you going to continue that?
Yeah, I mean that's the plan. The plan is, to really focus on the figures that you don't have in your collection. Like you don't need me to make some of the stuff that you've already got. So like what do you not have? Because like I said, if you want to go get, I'm making it up, you want to go get a shipwreck, like you can go get shipwreck. You can get a vintage one and put it on your shelf without too much trouble
Oh,
and
pretty cheap.
without too much expense.
Yep.
So you don't need me to go make a new shipwreck for you. But what do you not have? That's what I'm interested in as a collector. And I think as the person buying this as a collector is like, expand the line into things that we haven't got yet.
Um, so then, are we going to be doing the pre-orderable scenario the way we just got this last wave, where you dropped it on a Wednesday, it was shipped out on a Thursday, and I'll probably have it by Sunday or Monday or something like that,
I,
instead of the longer waiting where you kind of look at something and you have to get a certain order amounts and so on?
we won't be doing pre-orders like that, but like this sort of pre-sale or pre-book or pre-launch, whatever we want to, whatever it's being called.
Right.
Yeah, we'll probably have a version of that for most of these, which is like, okay, they're coming out, you get them first at Super-7 kind of thing like that. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been doing these kind of things like this that came with my newest wave of Thundercats the other day, where there's an accessory pack. Now that you've got the cadence and you've got me, the people like me that are going to be getting probably most of this stuff, I would say 85% of it, is there an incentive like you do with Super-7, with Thundercats, Silverhawks? You did it with G.I. Joe Ultimates, and you're going to probably do it with Tiger Sharks when that gets released in January. Would there be something like that as a that you could add to this line as well, accessories? Because Pythona, people are kind of a little, even though we wanted that gem of that size solves all my problems, it didn't solve all my problems. We wanted more squidgies and we wanted more claws, that type of thing with Pythona. Is there something you have played around with that or thought about that?
Well, I think there's sort of two different things there. You have with the ultimates and the super packs, that's more like, look, for the most part, you're giving us your money for a year before you get it. So
Right.
that's the thank you. In the case like this, where you're saying, hey, I'm buying this stuff, like you're getting it in a week or 2 weeks. Like it's not, I'm waiting a year for it. So I think there's a slightly different transaction that's happening there. I think in terms of accessories, we've talked a lot about like, is there an appetite for just, you know, for lack of a better description, like army buildery kind of weapon pack things, accessories, where you could bundle together, whether it's guns or sorry, blasters. I think that's the technical term that I have to use. Blasters and other accessory pieces. If you think about it from the Star Wars context, they had back in the day, they had that one accessory pack where you could get the clear masks and you could get all that stuff. Like we've talked a lot about what that might look like as a group. When because then you're sort of looking at like what are the accessories that can be used across multiple characters. If you're talking about Pythona directly, then you're talking about very specific um, accessories. But I think that there's an interesting thing. Let me stop because I'm going to stop because there's something else that we've been talking a lot about that might lead to a different version of what you're talking about that I want to kind of be like, hold on. Where there's something else that might dovetail into part of what you're talking about and something different that we're talking about that could be that might answer some of those questions, not all of them. But I think the idea of accessory pack is different, and then there's a version of just like, are there more deluxe versions of characters?
Well, yeah, that is definitely another.
Not deluxe like our line, but like more elaborate versions, like the O-ring that we're bringing to. I'm talking about stuff that I shouldn't be talking about, but the version of the O-ring that we bring to market right now is true to the original figures in a lot of ways. But is there a version of the O-ring that you bring to market that maybe is a much more elaborate version that wouldn't have been true to what was done back in the day, but a modern customer might like?
I think so because I think people have dabbled in O-ring style models of figures since O-ring inception in the 70s with Dukes of Hazard or whoever else was in the 70s. People have been doing that for more than 50 years, probably. So I think, yes, um, kind of fiddling with that model is definitely something that people are interested in. And maybe a playset maybe that has accessories or something down the road that people have never gotten before with some weapons racks or this or that. Definitely I think people would be interested in that. So I think yes to all those, but again, I'm on all in. You got me already. I'm a fish that you've already reeled in, but you have to be tricky with all this stuff, and I understand completely where you're coming from.
Well, it's also like it's that fine line if you're a collector between are they giving me the stuff I want and are they feeding me versus are they, if you start to cross that line where you feel like the perception is that they're bleeding me or they're forcing me to buy stuff I don't want just to stay complete, that's never a fun sort of feeling. So I don't want to feel like I'm forcing people to like, oh, now you got to buy this version again or do something different with it. It's sort of, I, yeah, I just try to keep all of that in mind, but there's there's definitely conversations we have around this stuff where it's like, I don't know, what if it were a more elaborate version of the same thing?
I
Would that
understand.
be would that be interesting or would that just not feel appropriate to the the line, for lack of a better description?
Well, maybe I can kind of elaborate on it a little bit. When you did the mothership pre-orderable scenario, there was an additional bonus where you could get 5 Vipers,
Yep.
and so 5 Viper pack would be something I think people would want. But the problem is, we got a Viper in the O-ring line originally. They've done many different iterations of Vipers. Your Viper was different because it was a Viper that was for the mothership specifically, and it was designed differently to pilot that ship. And then you also had the pilot as well. There was a different O-ring figure as well. So you had 2 different Vipers there. That we never had before because we never had the mothership and we never had needed pilot Vipers for
Yeah,
vehicles
exactly.
because we had the Mamba driver, or the stun driver, or the Moray driver, or whatever Viper that drove every one of these vehicles. So, in that sense, I think people would be interested in something like that.
Okay. Noted.
And I know you've talked about the possibility of getting the mothership down the road. How well are sales doing on Reaction Plus, where you got a lot of feedback since that original release, and the possibilities that maybe in a year we could get it again? Uh,
The Reaction Plus line is doing well. I think people are very excited and happy with it. That's the GI Joe they've been looking for and asking for on the collector side. That's not an issue. But again, as we've talked before, most of the vehicles have been made, so it's hard to find those ones that haven't been made before. And I know you've got, hold on, I know we'll get there. But the mothership though it's not a small one, it's a huge one. And is it still too big for most people and
I
too
think so.
expensive for most
Yep,
people?
I think so.
Yeah. That
That's
my
just
take
me.
is right now is while there are people that want it and the people that think it's neat, people are not ready to throw $450 against a spaceship right now.
450. Wasn't that
Or
650?
whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was, but like even then, like no one's people are looking for that, 150, $125, $75. Christ, most people actually will be like, I'd like it to be $40, but that's not realistic
Yeah, you
necessarily
can't do
either.
that. No.
So I don't get the sense that the demand is strong enough to make Mothership work for most people still at this point. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a few other background vehicles we've sort of noted. Doesn't mean none of them are in the works, but we've noted a few. And I know you've got your finger up for your vote. What's your vote?
It's the same one that I mentioned in every interview we've done, the 6 interviews we've done. It's always the same vehicle, the Aspid helicopter for Cobra. And
Yeah.
there's a perfect example where you could stick that pilot Viper.
Yeah. Maybe so. Maybe so. Who
It's in
knows?
every iteration. It's in Sunbow. It's in comics. It's in all various comics and things like that. I don't know. It's one of those no brainers that the one vehicle in O Ring that people have wanted since the comics and this O Ring line was created, that people wanted that and it never got done because, oh, we got the Mamba. Oh, the Mamba's nice, but it's not the Aspid. The Aspid is a different thing where you can maybe carry a hiss tank or have some paratroopers come down from it or have some gunner turrets or it's just cool looking. and,
I don't disagree with those things.
and
So
you've done some really wonderful vehicles, the thunder tank, you've done it twice now, animated and the
the toy color. Yep.
toy color, which that thing is not cheap, but people have bought both of those.
Yeah. And it's a beast of a vehicle too.
Yeah, trust me, I have it.
It's
It's
like
wonderful.
10 pounds. It's crazy.
So I know vehicles is a tricky scenario, but I know for a fact that's one of those things I know. I I'd be willing to give you every single GI Joe I own if that didn't sell out.
Well, let's not make that bet first.
Yeah, no, but it's that's the one vehicle you could do. Now the funny thing about it is you did the huntsman with the snake eyes and the all the dogs and stuff, and now there's a lot of people are like wanting that in classified because classified is doing all these Sunbow inspired iterations of characters like you have, and I'm like, you created a demand for something that there wasn't really a demand. I don't think you made a demand for something.
Maybe. I think that might be exerting our influence a little too much, or giving ourselves more credit than we should do. Like, we're all going back to all the source material and finding the moments that we find interesting. And so, I think we just happen to be the first to do it. That doesn't mean that other people don't get there on their own.
Correct. Correct. Um, so that's an interesting point that you bring up, and the characters that you've done. Well, we already touched on that. Actually, I was going to go back and touch on something we already talked about. Trying to get things that the fans want is tricky. I'm not going to take anything away from that. But there is something that you did touch on recently in a couple of my colleagues' channels about Thundercats, and I wanted to touch on it. I hope it's not
Okay.
something that you can avoid or anything. I hope you can talk about it. And it is on the back of the Thundercats. Um, you had artwork. You had some
Yep.
beautiful artwork and stuff like that. And you said in several interviews recently that you're not going to be doing that artwork any
That
longer.
on the latest wave, the artwork goes away. Yeah, there's some complications there.
Well, and that's what I'm going to get into here. I think I know what it is. But so you're doing renders of the character, the figure itself. Is it because there's a big stigma over AI artwork? And I know DC Comics has
We
come out
haven't
in New
used
York
any AI
saying they're
artwork.
not going to do it, and McFarlane said he's not going to do it, and somebody at Marvel Comics said they aren't going to do it either. So
We don't
three
use it.
major people came out at New York Comic Con, said they are not using AI artwork on their products. Is that the reason?
No, no, we don't use AI artwork. I know everybody likes to talk about Wild Bill as being AI, and it wasn't. It's just bad Photoshop. Um, we don't use AI on anything, anyways. But it's not. That's not the reason. It's just, it just, I don't know. We're making it all seem to be much more mysterious and much more dramatic than it is. It's just, unfortunately, we just can't do that right now. And it's like, just, it's annoying, but just let it's one of those things where, I'm not going to get into the weeds of it all, but we're just not able to do that right now.
Okay.
So, you know, does it change? Yeah, because we're talking about what, wave 14 Thundercats, I think. You
Well, I'll
know,
just use them as an example because this is a GI Joe podcast, but I wanted to see how it translated into the
it,
GI
it does
Joe.
it doesn't translate. It has nothing to do with any of those macro things at all.
Okay.
It just happens to be a change on the packaging for Thundercats. That's all.
Okay. All right. So, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Because I'm trying to ask questions that I think people do want to know and things that they're interested in when they hear you speak. Because I try to find all your interviews and I want to learn everything I can and stuff like that. It's just who I am. And I know there are a lot of people that have questions and a lot of people that um, are interested in this stuff. And it's I know you can't tell us everything, but you're very open. I've
You know,
followed you for decades, for 20 years, since you started doing toys. I've been following you, and you're a very open-minded person, very open with your business, and the things that you say that you can't say, you're perfectly clear on. I can't talk about that, or let's wait
yeah,
till down the road, or this or that.
well, and people always try to make it more nefarious than it is, and it's usually not. It's usually something pedestrian that's just, you know, it's not just what do we want to make and what's cool and what's going on. Like, there's a whole lot of competing factors on anything that we're working on.
So
Line list, character choices, packaging choices, this, what is this? If we were just talking about GI Joe as an example, like, what's classified making, what's that going to make, what's the media plan for the next coming years, what product is going to be off the table then versus on the table now, like, there's all this other stuff. None of it's nefarious, none of it is vindictive, none of it is predatory. It's always just more like, you know there's other factors at play other than just what I want to make this week and how I want to bring it to market. So all these other things sort of lay in. So if there's an initiative going on in another realm for another reason, it might bleed over into one of the lines that we're working on. And while it really doesn't have something direct to do with what we're doing, it does a little bit. And so, okay, well, then we just have to kind of move over here for a little while, and then maybe we'll be able to move right back. It's all of this stuff is in flux all the time. And because we work so far out, priorities change for people along the way. Like, we can be working on, like I said, we're working on 2027 right now. That doesn't mean that middle of 26, something could happen. And all of a sudden, everything in 2027 needs to be changed, rearranged, moved, done, switched around. And in doing so, it can create all sorts of hiccups along the way. Now, obviously, our job is to keep that as you know, uh, invisible as possible. Like your job as the consumer is, I want to buy this and have fun. I don't want to hear about how the sausage gets made.
I do.
Well, people like that, but you don't need to be in the drama and twists and turns of it all. Of like, oh wait, this color was wrong or that, and we had to remake that, or this didn't get approved and this went this way. But then they decided that, you know, like I'm going to make up fake examples right now, but let's use a big media thing. Like, say it was Marvel and you were working on a whole bunch of Marvel stuff. Then all of a sudden somebody decided they were making Guardians of the Galaxy and they wanted to use that character. And now you couldn't use it. You had to change your whole line plan. Like, it's not nefarious, but it's just things change all the time in bringing these things to market. And the best, we all try to have the best laid plans of mice and men, but things always have to morph. And it may have nothing to do with what you're doing, but it still is coming from someplace else that's part of a different agenda that affects you. And so all this stuff moves around. So it's not a big, so coming back to this thing with that, it's like, it's not this crazy, weird conspiracy thing, but just give it a moment and it'll sort itself out. And, hopefully we'll be back to illustrations.
I like how Tony and Lenny and the people on the Hasbro GI Joe brand, they always call it craft. They always call it like a company craft. There's things that are going on behind the scenes that they can't let people know about, but it's part of the toy business craft of whether they own it or they don't own it or this or that, the toy craft of the whole business and things like that. But I think one of the interesting things is when you put out your Pythona for Reaction Plus, that was the, I'm going to say, the fall drop. There was also a Pythona coming out from Classified that was a pre-orderable scenario, and it came up very close on top of yours. And I know you've always said that you don't like to be on top of someone else because it's putting out the same product that someone else is putting out. Technically, Reaction Plus is O-ring and Classified is 6-inch highly detailed, so they're not the same product. But it was coincidence when I saw that. I was like, well, I know Brian probably is not happy about that, but also
No,
Big Lob.
I think let's clear that up. Not happy is a whole. That's a different. Don't put that on me. That's
Okay,
not true. It's more just that both sides, whether it's us and the Classified team and the GO2 team and Lenny and everybody, we're always trying to make sure that we're not possibly stepping on each other's toes. So you want to give a figure that comes out time to breathe. You don't want somebody to say like, "Oh, I've been waiting for Pythona for years. Now I have to choose." You want them to just have that moment. And maybe they get both, and that's fine. But we work together to try to make sure that, okay, hey, if we're going to go here, then you guys go here. And then when that's done, then we can come back. And you're playing a little bit of seesaw. Now, inevitably, sometimes they come to market at the same time, no different than this. It's
well,
not, but if it
those are
was like
planned.
that for
Some of
every
those are
product, it
planned.
would be problematic.
But that some of those are concerted effort plans, like the Cold Slither, Zartan, San Diego Comic Con, all those drops from Big Bad Toy Store, Walmart, Super-7, and
Yep.
then the whole set at San Diego Comic Con. That was a concerted merchandising effort with all companies because it
Yep.
was LPs, it was all kinds of stuff happening.
Yeah, exactly. And we work together on some of that stuff and we work separate. For the most part, we're really good about making sure that we're apart. But every once in a while, you're gonna, we'll cross the streams every once in a while. Make our Ghostbusters reference here for everybody. But we generally try not to do that. But it doesn't mean it's the end of the world if it happens here or there. So so saying that, I'm sure you weren't happy about that. I think that's a misnomer. I think it's just we try to plan that the customer is getting something different from everybody and not getting hit with the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, completely. I apologize for putting words in your mouth.
Well, yeah. I
Um,
don't want somebody going back to them and going like, Brian's angry. And they're like, what are you talking about?
no.
Like, I thought we were cool, bro. Like, we are. We're cool. You're cool. Don't
Uh,
worry.
so one more question before I let you go because I know you're a very very busy guy. Um, getting different IPs. Like you've gotten the Micronauts, obviously you have G.I. Joe, you have Transformers, you have Thundercats, Silverhawks, Tiger Sharks coming out in the future. Are there any? You got the Universal Monsters as O-Ring Reaction Plus as well. Is there any IP that could like complement GI Joe that you would love to get and complement this O-Ring Reaction Plus brand that you've created for the future for the fans out there? Because I know you've talked about it in interviews before.
Well, I mean, clearly we're working in 2027 and all of 26 is planned, and there's a lot of it that hasn't been shown to anybody or talked about. So there may be some of that stuff coming that I can't just talk about yet. And secondarily, if there was something that I was gunning for, I wouldn't be putting it out there in front of everybody else to go like, oh, that's a good idea, we should go get that. Like, I'm going to keep that kind of close to the vest so that I can go get it.
Gotcha.
But there's definitely IPs that we've been trying to get forever that are just difficult to get. And there's a reason in some, like I've said it in many interviews, but there's a reason that you're like, why doesn't anybody make this? And it's like, because there's a reason. There's a hold up somewhere that precludes people from being able to make it, or otherwise, trust me, we would be.
I think Super-7, I think you are doing a great job. The fact that you do a lot of these a year, and I watch a lot of them just to get more, to glean more information. You're very open, and I really appreciate. You're very generous with your time, talking to folks like myself, and I
We're
love
talking
it.
about toys. What more could I mean? Like this, if this is work, this is a pretty good job, right?
Well, that's one of my things that I really enjoyed was hanging out with you last year at in Augusta and learning that you are a collector. Not only are you collecting comics, you're collecting LPs, you're collecting vinyl Godzilla toys, you're even collecting like vintage World War II furniture and stuff like all this stuff.
Mid-century modern, yeah, mid-century
You're one
modern
of us.
furniture. Yeah,
You're just trying to do the best you can for everybody, the best you can.
yeah. I mean, all of us, none of us need any of this stuff, right? The only reason we buy it is because we enjoy it and it makes us happy. So I really try to focus on that first and foremost. All the rest of the drama that goes along with it is completely unnecessary in my mind, and quite frankly, doesn't matter. It doesn't change like when my alarm's going to go off. It doesn't change whether or not I have to make dinner or pick up a kid from school. None of that matters. So like, let's just make this, do our best to make it cool and fun and have a great time. That is the end of it. Because if it's miserable, then why are we here?
That's right. And I think that's the perfect note to end this discussion on. And I want to say, as always, Brian, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to
Well,
me
hey,
and to.
thanks you took time to talk to me too.
All right, everybody, go get your Super-7 reaction Joes at super7.com right now. You'll probably get them in a couple of days.
Yep. This is your chance to get Mara. Come on.
Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you next time. Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.